Hey guys, it's Mike here, and recently on my channel, I talked about the biggest retcon in Dragon Ball Z, which you could see down below in the description and the end screen of this video. However, now I want to talk about the next series that comes after that. Well, not really after that, in between two sections of that, which is Dragon Ball Super, and talking about the biggest retcon in Dragon Ball Super. And what exactly is that? Well, let me get into that right now, because I think that a lot of people aren't even going to realize, much like in that Dragon Ball Z video, what the biggest retcon of Super actually is, because a lot of them really, well, they kind of forget about this when actually watching the series and the current quote-unquote continuation, or really interquel, of Dragon Ball Super. So let's get into that right now. So the biggest retcon of Dragon Ball Super, when it comes down to it, is really Dragon Ball Super itself. And I know, maybe I just blew your minds right there, guys, but really, how does that make sense? How can Super itself be a big retcon? Well, let's go to the original manga that Toriyama himself wrote and get into exactly why. Because the fact that, as we saw in the Buu saga, at the very end of the arc, after Goku defeated Majin Buu, the Kid Buu, using the Spirit Bomb, everything ended up going back to a place of peace. They all went back to King Kai's, well, they all went back rather to the Earth, to Kami-sama's palace, which was run by Dende at this point in time, teleported by Supreme Kai, Kibito Shin. He disappeared, left everyone here to hang out and to be reunited after the horrible atrocities that Majin Buu enacted on everyone, killing, eating them, and doing really all these horrible things, like absorbing them. At this point, you know, we see that Buu is here, and what's going to happen? Well, in 6 months, they're going to wish away Buu's memories from most people, so that nobody's ever going to worry about this guy walking around and, you know, fearing that he is the ultimate villain that they need to worry about, because, of course, Mr. Buu, despite putting on one of these faces, is a very nice guy at this point and actually helped to fight against Kid Buu. So after that, we see our final panels of everyone at this point in the series until in the very next page, it jumps forward to 10 years later. And we learn about this right here. And so Hercule, or, you know, the original version, Mr. Satan, becomes the savior of humankind once again. Of course, 6 months later, the public's memories of Buu are erased, but still people remember that Hercule saved them from something. As we could see here, what happens? Well, 10 years later. Immediately the story jumps to 10 years forward, which is already an indicator that, well, those 10 years must not have really had much to show us, otherwise why would Toriyama have just skipped ahead? And so we see Trunks is now grown up, he's now about 18 years old, and as we could see here, what happens? Well, he goes and he touches down in front of Gohan's house. And Gohan's house, sure looks a lot different than it does in Dragon Ball Super, doesn't it? Well, that's because the fact that Gohan is actually training, or is actually living in the same area of where his parents live, just in a capsule house. As we could see, you know, Gohan is now his adult, scholarly-looking self, and, you know, he's wearing those glasses, and he's training in the back with Goku, that is to say Goten, because Trunks is asking where he is. Vegeta and Bulma are here too. My parents? And what happens next? Well, we get reintroduced to all the characters again after the 10 years later. Buu, Chi-Chi, Goku, and Vegeta. As you can see, no change there. Bulma, I love these little pages Toriyama does in the manga. Bei, or B, who is the dog that they saved, now he's grown up and a little bit older. Mr. Satan, missing some of his Macho Man-esque hair. Goten, he got a makeover so he wouldn't be confused with Goku. Trunks, Bra, or Bola. Yamcha, who looks a lot different. Videl, too, with her mom haircut. You know, she and Gohan are officially married. Krillin, even 18, looks a little bit different now with her haircut. Marin has grown up. Master Roshi, he's got new sunglasses. Pan, you know, now she's actually, you know, introduced officially as the daughter of Gohan and Videl. And Dende's looking older, along with Piccolo, who hasn't changed. And what will we see right here? Hey, long time no see, says Goku to Bulma. Huh, that's something that wouldn't happen if Dragon Ball Super occurred now, would it? Because he was training with Goten. We'd never see you if you didn't drop in. You always were like that, Bulma says. You could see Bulma's looking noticeably older, not like in Dragon Ball Super. And then what does Goku say? That's not true. I visited you 5 years ago. 5 years ago. Oh yes, only 5 years ago, in between training trips. Hey, you've really gotten old, Goku, says Bulma. Shut up. Everyone tells me I look young for my age. You Saiyans are freaks. And then this is where he introduces, we Saiyans live in battle, so we remain in our prime longer. Phooey. Next time I'll ask Shenlong to make me older or younger. So maybe that's kind of the idea of where they got it from Dragon Ball Super, but again, none of this lines up with Super itself. Goku and Bulma have obviously seen each other many times over the course of that 10-year time skip where Super takes place. Bulma looks significantly older, and only now, after that 10 years, when she has gotten older, is she mentioning, oh, next time I'll ask Shenlong, or Shenron as many people call him in the English dub, to make me younger. So none of this lines up with what we actually saw in Dragon Ball Super, because, as we know, it just skips ahead 10 years. Basically, nothing is implied to have happened during that 10-year time skip, and then when we get into the end of Dragon Ball Z, which takes place after Dragon Ball Super, characters are saying they haven't seen each other in years in between training trips, not in between the Tournament to Power, or in between fighting the gods of destruction and achieving your Super Saiyan Blue, Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan Ultra Instinct, and all this other BS that Goku gets in Dragon Ball Super. None of that ever is implied whatsoever to have happened in the manga. Instead, what do we have? Well, you know, they haven't seen each other in a while. Goku's training with Goten, and they're going to enter the tournament. We even get introduced to Pan for the first time, who flew around the world, you know, and this does take place a year after Super Hero, so they're trying to make that line up, but again, there's a lot of things that clearly do not, like, you know, Bulma especially. And then what happens when we fast forward after all of this has occurred? After the tournament itself, where Goku actually meets with Oob for the first time, the reincarnation of Kid Buu, and goes to, you know, they have a very short match. Goku's flying, Oob can't do that, and so Goku says that he's going to train him, and they fly off into the distance. And, you know, if Goku had constantly disappeared, like they're saying all the time in Dragon Ball Super, he's always off training with this person or that person, would people really be freaking out that much that he's going to train somebody and he's going to disappear? Or are they going to be like, oh, this is Goku doing this yet again? It makes perfect sense. And so, you know, they're flying off in the distance. This is the end of the manga. And what does Toriyama say here? Goku and his friends have had some glorious adventures, but I'm afraid this is all we can show you. There'll surely be more trouble along the way, not before this point, rather, but somehow they'll always get through and the Dragon Balls will be there for them. And then in the Kanzenban version, Toriyama actually added a scene with Oob flying on the Kinto-Un, the flying Nimbus, and then, you know, they said that, like, the heroes of the Earth will always be there. There's a little retcon, and, you know, they added a scene of, oh, I'll surpass you one day, Kakarot, Vegeta says, which I always hated that little shot. And that's it. That's the end. That's the end of the story. And that's the way it was really meant to be. There was nothing really meant to take place up until the point where Goku fought Oob. It was all just kind of a peaceful time. Goku was training. You know, he pushed himself even further in strength to where he could fight against the enraged reincarnation of Buu, even though, you know, Oob here in this case wasn't really able to probably utilize the full power. But even then, if Dragon Ball Super and all these big adventures really happened in between, do you think that anyone would care about the reincarnation of Majin Buu or Kid Buu, the most powerful form of Buu without fusions or, you know, absorbing himself? Do you think anyone would really care at all about this kid? Or do you think they'd be like, oh, well, I mean, he was impressive 10 years ago, but then we fought Jiren, we fought Hit, we fought all these characters like Zamasu that can destroy universes. Why do we care about the reincarnation of Kid Buu? Why does it really even matter to us? Does his potential only equal Kid Buu? Because Goku could finger flick him and defeat him in an instant. Except here, when Oob is getting enraged, Goku's actually having to try a little bit to dodge his moves. He's taken some damage that actually hurts when he gets to block a move. And, you know, they're sparring back and forth. We even see this. Everyone's shocked by the power that Oob is displaying when Goku's fighting against him. And this is only really narratively significant because of the fact that Kid Buu was the last villain before this part of the story, which is to say that when you add a bunch of other characters in between, it doesn't have anywhere near the same significance. Even when you retcon that Kid Buu, you know, had God Ki inside of him like they did in the manga, and they keep trying to do everything they can to make Oob seem relevant, he no longer really feels anywhere near as relevant as he did here, because they literally go from his fight to his reincarnation and Goku going to train him because he knows just how powerful he can be, how incredible he is as he sees here, and he wants to teach him to master his power. Not just that, but also so that he could be the one who will protect the Earth in time. And what do we see that Vegeta says here, because he has a great insight? Kakarot, I know you too well. This isn't about protecting the Earth. Oob, when your train's complete, Goku says, promise to fight me. Sure. And then Goku says, I've been waiting years for this. Would Goku really be waiting years to fight this character when he's already fought characters that are like trillions of times more powerful, and he's achieved so many new forms and increased his base form to the point where he could literally just kill Kid Buu with a sneeze at 1%? Or does it not make any sense at all for Dragon Ball Super to have actually fit into this storyline, and for rather it to have been 10 years apiece, which are kind of implied not only in the manga, but especially in the anime? That really doesn't line up necessarily with the entire Dragon Ball Super itself, and there's so many other little retcons, little things to try and fit it into that time skip that don't necessarily line up either. And come the very end of the story, for all we know, they're going to do everything they can to make this line up by ripping away Goku and everyone else's God Ki and other power-ups, or just trying to say that somehow Kid Buu was like 10 trillion times stronger than he actually was, and he just didn't try for some reason. Who knows? But nonetheless, that is the biggest retcon in Dragon Ball Super, which really is the existence of Dragon Ball Super itself, the existence of all these arcs, all these enemies, all these massive things that occurred in between the end of the Kid Buu fight and the scene where Goku goes and meets Oob at the end of Dragon Ball Z, the end of Z as we like to call it, the end of the Dragon Ball manga. So ultimately that 5 years is only one indicator that, you know, you probably see in the thumbnail. You could see, you know, a lot of people talking about, oh, you know, Bulma said 5 years, but maybe she was rounding up. Maybe she said this or that. There's nothing in Dragon Ball Super that ever indicates that much of time has gone in between, you know, what we saw in like Dragon Ball Super Superhero, where, you know, the characters themselves obviously are like maybe a year at most away from the end of Z, and they're still meeting each other, they're still talking. I doubt that Goku is on Beerus's planet for 5 years or something. That doesn't make any sense at all. So again, none of it lines up. It's all a big retcon to fit in more story, to contrive an entire series in there, which ultimately doesn't have any tension to it because the fact that we already know the end of Z is coming, and despite the fact that people keep saying it's going to be retcon, it's going to be this, it's going to be that, it's always going to exist. That's always the true ending of the Dragon Ball story, the Dragon Ball manga, and anything that's new is going to really have to come afterward. But even then, who knows? For all we know, they're going to do a bunch more retcons and still make Dragon Ball GT happen. Maybe the next part of Super will take place in the 5 years between Z and GT. But make sure to stick around, because there's a lot more to come in the future.
And you better subscribe!